Hey, welcome to the Sequential Artist Workshop Pro Calls. Every week we ask another creator, another graphic novelist to come sit down with us and tell us where they came from, what were the first things they made, what did they make recently, how did they do it, what are they thinking about now, how are they going to move forward, how do they keep going, all those things, career things, art things, feeling things, creative things. Every month it's a new creator, new challenges, new stories. Come check it out. Come sit down with us. You can sit down live for some of these calls by being a member of our groups. You can find us at learn.sawcomics.org. Come check it out. Come be a graphic novelist with us. Come join us on the socials. Sometimes it's Comics Workshop, sometimes it's Saw Comics. Either way, come check us out and welcome. Yay! Hi, Cara. It's so nice to see you. I,
Hi.
I don't have a
Honored
proper
here.
What?
I'm honored to be here with all of you.
Awesome. And I was joking. I, I got the name of your book wrong when I ran into you, right?
It's I forget, but it doesn't matter
I
because
I
it's
can't
fun.
remember it. It's so good and it's so succinct, but I always get it wrong. But I think it's I am here, I am me. Nope,
Oh, nope.
shit. Sorry, wait. It's here I am me. That's
Here I
it.
am. I am me.
It is such a fabulous book. It is so wonderful. And I read it. I This is true. Carly, you can back me up. I read it and I bought copies for all the Saw employees. I
Oh,
said, I want you guys to read this and to be healthy. And it's such good cartooning. It's such good ideas about mental health. I bought one for my daughter. She hasn't read it. She doesn't seem like she's gonna. That's all right. It's still there on her bookshelf. But anyway, so for everybody, Kara's a great friend, a great cartoonist with a long story to tell about how she got here, and that's why we've got you. And I'm not I'm not going to give a larger introduction than that, except I'm so happy you're here. I'm so fond of you, and I'm going to let you speak.
right.
So,
I'm so delighted. I made a really funny slideshow that I was like, I'm just
oh
gonna put
really?
a bunch of stuff in here. I'm going way back to
Oh,
childhood. And
oh
then
great. We
moving
love
forward.
that. We love that. We love that. Okay.
This is kind of fun. But not what I typically show like schools and parents and stuff like that when I talk about my book. I have some
Right.
of that stuff too, but I went a little deeper for all of you. Let's see if I can do it. All right. Can you all see that? This was like the first piece of artwork that my family took a photo of that I was like really proud of. And that's me with the grayish shirt. And
Ah,
that's my sister next to me. And we grew up in Weymouth, Massachusetts, and she's like appropriately wearing a Weymouth t-shirt. And there's a little girl named Katie that lived across the street from us. And this is when I think when I got like my parents didn't save my artwork. I don't have like a lot of childhood artwork. Um, and I gave this away, so I don't even have the original of this, but I remember making it and being like, yeah, like mine came out really good and being excited about art. So I feel like I look pretty proud in this picture. Uh,
how old are you in that picture?
oh gosh, maybe I was 10 or 11,
Uh-huh.
something like that. And then here's me in high school making weird like sculptures, I guess, but they're very cartoony. And so I was always a little cartoony, but I didn't always make comics until much later in life. But like I see it when I look back. Again, my poor sister, like always being dragged into the picture with me. That's her wearing the mask as well. She is a nurse, like she's not into making art. She just was like a good younger sister, went along with me. And this is like me in high school, and I got to do this like cool in Massachusetts. We have this art program. It's held in Worcester, and you can go if you're a teenager. And I remember they gave us cardboard boxes, and we could make things out of them. And this was my friend I made there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm an artist! Like this is so cool. And then here's me in college, undergrad. I studied painting, and my friend was a photographer and took this picture. So I just thought I show these to my students to be like, look, like I was young once, like I made things. But I went to UMass Dartmouth. I did a lot of self portraits. These were my teachers in high school. They were old. I think I loved it because they just let me do whatever. They were like burnt out, but they were nice and they didn't have any rules. And I loved that as a teenager. Those are my college professors that I loved. They studied painting. Very cool people that showed me you could be an artist. And
Wait,
these
wait,
are some
wait.
early paintings I made when I was in college. The one is of my sister and one is of my brother. And they're oil paintings. So I
Those,
loved portraits. I loved people. And these are, then I did some sort of narrative, like this is another painting, but like again, I didn't know about comics yet. And I got really, in graduate school, I got really into gorillas. And so here's a little detail of a big wall piece I did in University of Washington in Seattle. I was a painting student there. And you can see here's the wall. It's very textural. I threw plaster and all this material, so it's very like bumpy and handprints. And then I used charcoal to draw these gorillas that I had been observing at the zoo. And I was very nervous. And there's my dad looking at them.
wow.
Yeah, yeah, like it was really cool. And then I liked it because it was like a sandcastle. You know, we had to rip it down after, and that was the end of it. So don't have it anymore.
Oh, that's
Oh yeah,
really
that's the
cool.
same one. This is Matt Smith, who is a cartoonist. He does a lot of stuff for like my favorite of his comics is called Barbarian Lord, but he lives in Massachusetts and he also does oh, the guy with the horns, it's a demon that the horns are cut off. He's red. Very oh, Mike Mignola.
Hellboy?
Hellboy, thank you. Yeah, sorry. I always blank out on Hellboy. He works on Hellboy right now and anyway, he is a real deal cartoonist, comic book person, and I knew him before I knew what comics were, and he's actually married to one of my best friends. That's how I know him. And early on, I was doing all these jobs where when you get out of college, you know, just administrative jobs, and making photocopies in my miserable office of my sketchbooks and mailing them to people. And he saw them and he was like, Cara, I think you would like comics. Like these kind of look like
Hmm.
indie comics, these photocopies you keep sending me. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he brought me in Boston. We have this great comic book shop called Million Year Picnic. And he was like, come in here and like look at all this stuff. And I discovered like Nate Powell and Gabrielle Bell and like all the and Jeffrey Brown. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was a thing. So like I really credit him. And he's still a very good friend of mine and a sweet person, but he like woke me up. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Wait, I missed it. How did you meet him?
Oh, he's married to one of my best friends. So
Oh,
he
right.
went to
Okay.
UMass Dartmouth as well, and so
Okay.
we go very far back. But he was in illustration and comics the whole time, and I was like, you know, towards the end of my 20s, I was like, or in early 30s, I was like, oh, okay, that's a thing you can do. I didn't know about indie comics and mini comics or any of that stuff. Um, and then I started, when I did start making comics, I started to be curious if I could make them. These are some of the early shows that I went to and I made friends. Me in Maine. I went to Cake in Chicago. I'm a big part of Mice here in Massachusetts. And this is where I really found some community and friendships and like my group of, we call each other book buddies, that we would like make things and share them with each other. I know there's you. There's Tom. Saw was a big part of my comics education. I spent the year of 2000, I think it was 2014, 2013, 2014, in Gainesville, absorbed in trying comics and looking at it in a new way. I also attended some of the summer programs at the Center for Cartoon Studies. So that, I mean, those two experiences. Oh yeah, and I love SPX too. I started going to SPX. That really made me understand like what comics are and like how to use them and like what you can experiment with and how they can interact. And I just met like the most lovely humans, just like I'm sure your group is right now. But I mean, when you don't have that and then you find it, it's like such a great feeling. So those are early years. Oh yeah, and then at the Center for Cartoon Studies, I met Robin Chapman, who has been working there when I took a summer class, and she invited me to be in my first anthology, which is very exciting. But you know, because she had like a small publishing company, and she would put out little books, and they're beautifully produced. Like she's just so you know, aesthetically tuned into what would look good together and how to pair it. And she let me do the cover to the anthology. And this is my first ever anything. I felt so honored. So this was a little piece that Robin, I felt like she welcomed me in and trusted me. And that was a big deal for me. Um, Here's a bunch of mini comic anthologies that I was a part of. And this was a big beginning for me because I could only probably handle a couple of pages of a story when I was first starting. So all these people I connected with or shared making a book with, and I just had to do a few pages. And that was great for me. And I also got to, and when you're in an anthology, you end up researching all the other people, for me at least, and looking into who they are and where they come from. And that's like more people to connect with or just be a fan of and watch their careers. So these are some of the ones that I did. And I, in terms of learning how to print something, or in the beginning, I didn't have a lot of the technological pieces to produce something, but I liked to draw it, so I really kind of needed people that were willing to help me too. Um, and these are a bunch of my first early mini comics. So, like I said, I was exhibiting at these different shows, and it would give me a deadline, and I would make a little mini comic and bring it to the table. And and I would see like what people connected to, or what people rejected, or who seemed to like what. And it was like a little psychological table, but still always a bit nerve-wracking for me to table. But I think it is when I talk to my friends that are just like working in prose, or creating novels, like they don't get this experience that we get of trading books and doing little bite-sized pieces at a time of something and being like, I'm not going to keep doing that one, or I'm going to come back to that. So these are some of the earlies. And you can see the gorillas came back from my grad school time in comics in a new way. So that's fun. It was fun to find out that comics had a huge history of using gorillas and gorilla imagery in the weirdest ways. And so I got a kick out of that. And then I did some illustration. This was random. I wasn't seeking to do this, but like this publisher reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to draw a little mustache book. Like it's not a how to draw like in steps, but it was like examples of very simple stylized hands and faces and mouths and body parts. And it was the first time that I've ever been published by someone that would put it in bookstores and put it, on a higher scale than I was used to doing mini comics. And so this was like, and it was kind of cool because it opened up like doing drawing workshops in libraries and things like that, which is a big part of my life too, is drawing with people. So this was just like a piece of my career puzzle that I did while teaching. Oh, this I made at SAW. This is called Munch. It's a little caterpillar comic. And we had access to the Rizzo machine there. So I got to make an accordion book, which I always wanted to make something artsy and like complicated, because I had never done that. And I haven't kept up doing that. It's probably the only time I did it, but it was really cool. And I still want to make Caterpillar comics. That's not gone, but this was a character that I used at SAW, and I really loved having it. Caterpillars. Then this is an illustration job that I got from one of my comics friends that I met through exhibiting at these comic shows and just going out for pizza after, like not trying to network that hard. But I had a friend that was working for Workman Press, and she said, hey, would you want to do some illustrations for this chemistry book? And I knew I wanted to take more time off of teaching, so I was like, ooh, it would be nice to make a little extra money. And I was a bit nervous to do it because I was not a good student in high school, with especially science and math. And so I was like, oh my gosh, can I illustrate a science book? And so I did it, but once I started doing it, I realized like, oh my gosh, I'm really enjoying learning chemistry. And I was definitely learning way more than I had in high school or any other time, because I was redrawing in all of the chemicals and like coming up with symbols to remember them. And I became very fascinated and interested in it. And so I was impressed just with the act of drawing and understanding, but it also began this relationship with Workman Press, who I continue to work with. All right, but before we get into the publishing world and all that, I just want to talk about mental health and how that became a really important topic. This whole time when my comics awakening was happening over like 15 years or so, I was also teaching high school art, and I was teaching drawing and painting and portfolio and foundations and all the kind of 2D classes. In Lexington at Lexington High School. And I had just like so many kids over the years that struggled and had hard times. And so that's where, I was like, gosh, all this emphasis on grading and all the things, the pressures they have. But like, I feel like like the main thing my students needed from me was like to chill out in the art room and like decompress. And so all of the complexity things that I was building, I sort of shifted my teaching to mindfulness in a lot of ways, and also just like, just had experiences where I was like, it's hard to be a teenager. But here's my classroom. And we had an illustration club that met once a week after school. We did a little comics convention. Like I really pulled in my comics community to Lexington. And fun fact, Scott McCloud was a student at Lexington High School, so I liked that too. That like I could talk about him. Like, he went to school here. But I loved these kids. I loved working with them. So that was, a good, from like 2005 to 2018, I was in and out. I mean, I left to go to sophomore year, but I was in and out of this place. So I would like connect about with their mental health through art, right? Because it really comes through in our artwork. And these are just some, I don't show this to everybody, but these are like some drawings I collected from students that like these were left behind. Like these were under the desk or like not meant to go home with them. Yeah. And I just was like, oh, my sweeties. This kid, there were hundreds of these little ink drawings. And I know, this could look like nothing, but I knew this kid and I knew he was going through a really tough time.
Wow.
And this one, I knew him from I taught him in middle school. And then I met him, he was the happiest middle schooler. And then I met him again in high school and he was struggling so much. But he's just so good at art. And I always think this is interesting. Like kids would want to draw about drugs. And I always felt really freaked to discuss it with them because it was a public school and like, the adults get like in trouble if you just handle it the wrong way. It was like very nerve-wracking to confront it on, as the art teacher. May be different if you're the health teacher or the guidance counselor, but I remember I saved it because I really liked it and I was like, it's so cool, but I feel like I can't deeply explore it. But yeah, it's just interesting. Let's see. Oh, and this, like, once the kids knew I was working on mental health comics, some of them even made like study guides for me to understand what it's like to be a kid. So this was like a little guide about leaving elementary school and going into middle school and how this one kid's life got an example of how a kid's life can go from pretty happy to like much more complicated and difficult. And I just like the chunking because that reminds me of comics, like the breaking of the timeline and the pieces.
Wow.
That.
That's intense.
I know, like these are really brilliant teenagers, like way smarter than I could ever be. So I got to have them in art class. They went on to become like surgeons and doctors, and all these amazing humans in the world. But I got them in art class before they got too caught up with other things. So yeah, here's another one just talking about isolation. And this is before the pandemic, way before the pandemic. So yeah, like wanting to be part of things, but feeling like you can't. And I love the lettering, like, there's just a lot of comics language in here. Oops. Oh, sorry, jump backwards. So at that time when I was thinking about, well, how did it start? It started when I attended this training because I had, to be honest, like there was a suicide at the school and there were some tough things that happened. And it wasn't like a kid that I was close to, but it was a kid that my students were close to. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to know more. And so I attended this training on depression and suicide at McLean Hospital, and it was awesome. It was like an all-day event, and I was so desperate to learn that I was really, when I need to learn something, I redraw it, or even just rewrite it in my handwriting to internalize it. And so I'd done all these doodly pages based on the workshop, and people saw them and were like, that's so great. Like, can I borrow that? And not, I think I posted it on my blog at the time, and it was very popular, and people really, really wanted it. And eventually, actually, James Sturm from the Center for Cartoon Studies was kind of opening up this concept of applied cartooning in his school, and he was doing like an art show about that. And I don't know how he saw this, but somehow he saw this, and he said, Cara, can we have your some of those pages for our show? It's like at Clark University. I was so honored that he asked me. I realized, like, oh, I didn't have those pages anymore. Like, that I'm a disaster. My room is a mess. I've lost everything. I'm just like teaching. I'm so busy. I wasn't going to do anything with them. They were just notes, but I did have the digital, like the thing that was on my blog. So I redrew it as a mini comic and printed it. And
Wow.
so I could be in his show, and also so that people were asking for a paper copy of it. So I had made this little mini comic or zine or whatever you want to call it. And then, man, it would go, and I would print, people would ask for more, and I would print more, and then those would be gone. And and people kept bringing it up as if I was like a specialist on making comics about mental health. I'm like, these are just notes I took. Like, I don't know anything. I'm like everybody else. So, but it was powerful. I remember being annoyed by it because I wanted to like draw my caterpillars. I was like, I want to make cute things, and this is all anyone wants to talk about. And I just eventually surrendered to it, and I decided that I should think about it more. And actually, some cartoonists that I knew that were more successful than me shared this snake pit, which is on my website, to like Facebook when it was very popular at the time. And a editor wrote to me and said, hey, like, this is really cool. I have a 12-year-old daughter. I haven't really seen anything on the shelf that speaks directly to kids about mental health. What you've done speaks to the adults, like, or the teacher, or the, aunt or uncle that cares about a young person. Um, but it doesn't, talk directly to the kid. And then I was like, oh yeah, meanwhile, I'm teaching like a gajillion classes and doing like summer camps, and I'm so busy. So I tried to make like a few things, and I sent it to this woman, and she totally ghosted me, and like nothing came of it. And but she planted that idea in my head, because I was like, yeah, she works in publishing. She's like, she noticed that this was this hole, and I'm looking around going, no one else is doing that. Well, somebody should be doing this. So I needed a break from teaching anyway. I was burning out hardcore teaching way too much. So I decided to take 1 year, saved up for a bit, and I was like, I want to get back into my comics. And I kind of made a public promise to make comics that spoke directly to kids about mental health, but I had no idea how to do it. And if I could even do it, I just was like, I felt like there's a noble reason to not be teaching for a year. I was like, my parents will be mad at me. Like, this is a good reason to quit my job, or take a break from my job. But so then I started to try to do this, and it was super hard. I did find a new workman came back into my life and decided to make this book with me. Um, and I didn't have a manuscript. I didn't know what I was doing. I just tried a bunch. It was really embarrassing because I had to turn in my terrible tries to the editor, and then can be like, oh my God, it's so bad. Like, I actually don't know how to make a book. I don't know why I said I could do this. Very scary. And looking back now, like, that was year one. It took 6 years to make the book that Tom discussed that I made, and the first year was just like trying things. And if I could look back, I'd be like, that's what year one is going to be. But at that time, I was like, I have to deliver.
Mhm.
Yeah. And in the meantime of struggling, the second this little comic came up. This is a 24-page comic I made with the Center for Cartoon Studies, and they got wind that I was actually, no, they have a residency. I applied for it and was like, hey, I'm taking a year off. I need to focus. I'd love to have access to your library. I'm gonna make these comics, and they accepted me to for their residency, and so they knew I was doing this. And then they got approached by this organization in Ohio that wanted to make a book about mental health for middle schoolers, but it was from an addiction, substance use, mental health organization, and they had like, this is what we want in the comic. We just need a cartoonist that will put it in there. And that was refreshing to me because I had too much creative control over my book about like what would go in and come out, and I was like existentially struggling a lot with it. So I liked that there were like this firm structure with this little comic, and it's a lot of dense information, and it's not personal. I didn't put myself in this book. I mean, I did if you know me, but um,
Mhm.
it's not the Bean, which is who it's me. My last name is Bean. So but I had the support of the Center for Cartoon Studies, and they had I had help from the students that helped me color the book and do some of the technical pieces. So we were able to jam it out. I don't know,
Mm.
in like 7 to 8 months. It was completed and like went off.
Mm.
In the meantime, I'm still working on my project, um, which is the book that Tom mentioned. Here I am me. So the little bean is me. This is 288 pages, and had many uh, versions of it before it became what it is now. And now that it's over and done with, and I can look back on it, I'm so happy that it took so long and that so many people had a hand in it. But it's so nerve wracking at the time, or was. So just to show where that book came from, I had 4 editors on this book, and
Oh.
they're all brilliant in their own right. But in the time, I think I signed the contract in 2018, and then the book came out in 2024. So I started with Tracy Todd, who's a brilliant editor and really gave me a shot and like had faith in a book that wasn't written yet, like amazing. Katie Campbell is her assistant that went on to become is like moving up the ranks of editors. A really beautiful reader, very sensitive to mental health topics. Chris Duffy is a comics guy. Some of you might know him. He worked on like SpongeBob or Nickelodeon, like he does tons of books. He's an editor. He's like, I call him like my fun uncle of the editors. And I really needed him to relax because I was so stressed. And he was like, just try things. Like, who cares? And which is really good energy for me. And then Megan Nicolay took me to the finish line. Chris took another job. Every time someone left the job, I would like have a heart attack. But I was always rewarded with another amazing human that helped me. And I think because of the subject matter of the book, everybody brought their A game and cared. Um, thank goodness. So Megan was like a lovely, lovely human that helped me get the book finished. And then I had all these content readers that were wonderful, and I could send chapters to and get notes back. And so, and one of them, the last one, who's the drawing there, Michael Safranek, I met him through graphic medicine, and he's a therapist in the UK. And he uses comics in his practice. So he was in the graphic medicine community. And I went to the conference that was in Vermont in 2018, and he ended up being a very wonderful support system during the pandemic. And we would Zoom talk and talk about the depression chapter and the suicide chapter. And then I invited him to be in the book because I was like, you're awesome. Like, can you just be in my book as a character? And he said, sure. So I'll show you that. But yeah, neuroscientist, there's so many things that I was like, I am just the teacher, explainer person, but I don't know things. And so I need people who actually know things. And I needed lots of different people. And there's lots more people. These are just some of the big hitters. Experts and organizations, so much brilliant science communication in the world right now. So many lovely people that break things down so that even I can understand, and then I can possibly explain it to someone else. But I love people like Robert Sapolsky. He's a Stanford professor and a neuroscientist, and he puts his lectures about the brain and depression on YouTube, so any human can watch them. Like you can watch a Stanford lecture. And like Dr. Dan Siegel has beautiful little metaphors about like how, the brain and how to, what's the parts you need to know for, especially for adolescents. So, oops, sorry about that. Oops. Okay, art inspiration. I'll just go on. I could go on with the science people forever. So these are some of my artists I got into or was already into or got more into working on this book, or just knowing, oops, sorry, just knowing that comics does this, has been doing it forever, has been discussing mental health beautifully. Just maybe not in your face, right? So even just Peanuts alone, and Charles Schulz, like he made that strip for 55 years or something, like a decades and decades and decades, and he struggled with depression, and he uses the word depressed, like he'll use heavy things in these comics about kids, right? But because it's not on the front page and they're so cute, and it doesn't, he does it so gently and carefully that he can do it. Yeah, and in our children's books, and I got to go. I'll show you some pictures. I went to Finland, and I really got into Moomins, which I'm sure a lot of you know about. When I talk to like school groups, there's only like a few people that know the Moomins, but if you don't know the Moomins, they're really fun storytelling and characters, and I feel like some great metaphors for mental health in those stories. And the Groke is one of them, is this character
Mm.
that desperately wants friends. It's that kind of monster character, and can be giant and moves through this snowy cold landscape, and everyone's afraid of the Groke, but it's so sad because the Groke really is lonely and would love a friend. It's trying to like engage, but sadly if anyone touches the Groke, they'll turn to ice. It's like a Medusa snake. So I just love that. And then also the Invisible Child is another character in the Moomins at the top there, the little character with the red dress, but you don't see a face, is a great metaphor for trauma. Like, and it's not said that in the storytelling, it's just in there. But this, the Moomins have this like really lovely, loving family, these little characters, and there's a mama and a papa, and they're care about each other. And Moomin brings home this invisible child, and it's like, we gotta help this little girl. And they find out the story is that she's from this big family, and she's completely neglected and not paid attention to, so she disappears because no one can see her anyway. And then as Moomin Mama kind of adopts her and takes care of her, she becomes visible again. And it's just like so lovely. I'm probably ruining it and describing it, but it's like beautifully revealed in the storytelling. Anyway, and also I wanted to point out The Simpsons, because I feel like that was for me. I have a lot of alcoholism and addiction in my family, and I really appreciated that they was like in there. It was a lot of jokes and storytelling about like Homer had a drinking problem, and like there was a bar, and like it was just addressed in a cartoon that was for kids. But I was like, I feel like you don't see this on like a kids show that was actors, like you could do more with animation. And I noticed that even as like a young person myself. Okay. Oh, I will mention that since we all are a lot of cartoonists here, John Porcellino. Um, I remember early, or years and years and years ago, early when I first went to Millionaire Picnic, I discovered John Porcellino, and he wrote about his OCD, and that was something that I was like astonished by and like really touched by, and like couldn't believe how he could do this, or how I was even absorbing how he was experiencing things. It was really powerful. So I like to point out. And then Raina Tegelmeier on the bottom there too. I'm just seeing what she was able to do with talking to young people, and like they love her, like it's amazing how she reaches them. And so like I just pay very close attention to her. I think she's amazing. Okay, what's in the book, just so you know, this is what I narrowed the chapters down to. I got 9 chapters. I really hope there's a lot more books about mental health for young people. There's so much I didn't cover, or could have gone way deeper into. But I feel like hopefully it kicks off other cartoonists doing this too, and making more and more on the shelf. I'd love to see a book specifically like on OCD or on eating disorders or bullying. Like there's just so many things that we could go, and they are coming out and it is happening. But this is what I just kind of wanted to do, like a basic understanding and hit some big points. My like deal breakers for making a book was like I had to have the brain in there, and there had to be neuroscience. That was really important to me. And I had to have a chapter on suicide and crisis prevention. And that was like had to happen. And and they were so cool. Like Workman Press was like, absolutely, yeah, that's fine. Just, let's just make sure we get it right. In the book, when I was making mini comics, a lot of my early stuff is like memoir and stories about my life. And so there are little bits of that in the book. I call them the pink pages, where I source my life and try to connect with the subject matter. And I know even when I read nonfiction about mental health, I love to read like the real life stories of people and like what it actually felt like to go through an experience. And so I wanted to touch on that. It's not like the whole book isn't that, but there's little pieces of that. And I feel the kind of book that I made, I'm so fine with people picking up or putting down, or even like Molly Rose not interested in it. That's fine. Put it on the shelf. Maybe in like 4 years something weird happens and you're like, oh, this might help us talk about it, like something at school or whatever. It's not like a book you'd want to pour through. Okay. And yeah, here's another pink pages about me collapsing on stage at the high school. True story. But you have to read the book to hear why it's funny. This is just some cartooning nerdiness I feel like I can get into with all of you. So one thing, I really like Calvin and Hobbes. And one of Bill Watterson's interviews, he said something like, when he does like heavy philosophy or something intense, he will, in the writing, he will often have Calvin like in Hobbes like on the wagon or sledding or in their spaceship. But like if you read the text is a bit more complicated or intense, but the movement is quicker. And so I tried to incorporate some of that, not nearly as good as Bill Watterson, but my version of it, I guess. I tried to make these like waterways or mountains to climb, or just like moving through a landscape as we explore information. The movement was important, and that was something I stole from Calvin and Hobbes. Again, like, so in the book kind of takes a dip towards like more serious content in the substance use and addiction chapter, where like we're going to talk about dying, like some things, scary things. So instead of showing the scary things, I'm just talking about it on the roller coaster, so we don't have to see what drugs look like and all that stuff. I just want I want to move through the concepts of like what's dangerous, but we are just on a ride and then we get off. That's what I used in my book as a way to balance. Loving something, and then we're just metaphor collectors, right? So for me with substance use, like I always hated the spinning rides. I get sick really easily. And so that was my metaphor for loving someone with addiction, is like, oh, they just want to keep riding that spinning ride all day and I don't like it. And I want to go on a different ride, and you can't stay on that ride with them. So that, and then I also making all the characters' brains instead of humans was my way of kind of making it, hey, we all have a brain. Doesn't matter what we look like. Doesn't matter if you have money, if you don't have money, what culture you're from. We all have a brain. We're humans. So it's kind of weird, but that worked for me for my getting through the content and making it available to everybody. Reoccurring characters that come through. The brain, I have a chapter on the brain, but also like these little brain areas, your amygdala, your prefrontal cortex, your hippocampus, they show up again, and not every chapter, but they show up again and again when we talk about depression and we talk about coping and our brain chemicals. So we meet them at the beginning and then we keep meeting them. They show up again and again. I love, oh yeah, and then the hippocampus is the memory part of your brain, but as you can see, it's a bit of a shout out to the Moomins, right? Like now, can you see my the shape is Moomin-esque. So that's It's in there. And then the stigma monster is something I was really impressed with Ellen Forney's work on mental health. And she mentions the stigma monster at the end of her Rock Steady. And it's awesome. It's a really funny character. And it's just a little thing at the end. And I was like, oh, that's such a good idea. Like, I'm totally going to have a stigma monster too. So when I did the Center for Cartoon Studies 24-page comic with the rabbits, I gave some of those copies out to kids and I was like, what did you like the best? And my nephew was like, I like the stigma monster. And I was like, bam, it stays. And so that has a chapter and this character comes back every time there's like a negative thought or bad reaction. Oh, and then this working on the book was an adventure. I went to a lot of this was like prior to the pandemic and then the pandemic. So big shift happens. But at the very beginning, I went surprisingly to a lot of weird and cool places to work on this because I wasn't chained to my job. First, I went to Finland. They have this residency for cartoonists. Look into it. And it's all like funded and they pay for your plane ticket even, and you're there for 2 months. You're there in the winter time. It is dark. But I look for mental health, like they are very open, very honest, transparent about their feelings about depression and suicide, and like and even the sense of humor there is so much darker. Like this is where death metal is happening. Like this is like really cool. So I felt my own stigma feelings come up because I would teach the students for like just like a week and we did little mini comics and they were like, Cara, you must read our comics out loud. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, ugh, like this is hard for me to say. Like I'm having a hard time reading, their how raw and honest their comics were. It was a very, very cool experience. So I was there for 2 months, came back to the United States. I was struggling like hell trying to make this book. I was pretending like it was fine, but I was really freaking out. Then I went to Corpus Christi, Texas, where my partner is from, and we stayed. His father was not well, and we stayed and helped out with his mom. And I got to go to this really cool little art studio called K Space in downtown Corpus, and I rented like a little corner of the room. And I was like the only artist that likes the morning, so I was there by myself for the most part until about like 10, when this really cool guy named Jimmy would come in, and I would get to chat with him, and he was awesome. And I did a lot of brain work here. And even though I didn't have the book figured out, when I look back, when I think about the amygdala character and the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus, like they came to life in Texas. So you can so nice when you can look back on it. And that's my little dog Raisin. Then I went to the Center for Cartoon Studies. It was the Cornish Comics residency. This is for 1 month. And I got to what they don't say on the website, which is a big part of the residency, is you are sharing a home with cartoonist Harry Bliss, who is a New Yorker cartoonist, very successful cartoonist. And he's pretty much your best friend and neighbor for the month. But I didn't know that till you show up. You're like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. Oh, you live here too. And then you're hanging out with Harry every day. And he's lovely, but it's just funny. Like they don't put that on the website. But what was really, really cool about this residency, again, my work was, I was really struggling and mad at myself and upset that it wasn't coming together for me. I couldn't figure out like the chapters and how, I wasn't in the book yet, basically. I was trying all these narrative devices that stunk and weren't honest and authentic. So, but I had access to the beautiful library that's at the Center for Cartoon Studies. And there's so many old books and comic books and how to draw books and like just all the cartooning books you'd want. And I could just take huge stacks of them back with me to my little studio. And I remember copying a lot of cartooning and like trying to understand like the movement and, backgrounds and pieces and just getting nerdy about drawing, using cartooning in the way that cartooning is meant to be used, because I had studied fine art and I had to kind of unlearn and then relearn to a high degree, and I'm really grateful for that. And then my partner Smat, he worked for the Appalachian Trail, and he would put up with me going to Finland and like doing all this crazy stuff. So I had to give in and like do some crazy things he wanted to do, which was he wanted to work on the Appalachian Trail. So we got this really weird living situation, and I worked in all the different libraries in Pennsylvania while he hiked the trail. And I remember there's this library that they were taking out all the books out of libraries now, and so there's just like remnants of the stacks, and so that this little silver frame there was like empty. And so I remember I put a drawing in there, and I wonder if like anyone took it out or if it's still there, but it's my little graffiti. um and then after that, I won't go into the living situation. It was funny and it's bad, but that's for another day. I got to pick the next place we lived, which I wanted to go to Western Mass because I got a teaching gig at a community college teaching comics and illustration. And so we moved in with a furniture cabinet maker. And so it was the most and he built his own house, and he had built it so like other people could live there. Like, and look at those beautiful bookshelves. So I was like, this is where I'm going to finish my book, and we're going to get all, I had everything was like in boxes. I'm like, I'm going to get all my books out and make stuff. And it was great. And we were there for not even a year probably, because then this thing, COVID, started to be talked about and started to be a thing. And I ended up moving in with my parents. We both ended up moving in with my parents. My dad was very sick with dementia, and my mom was already in the soup, drowning as a caretaker before COVID. And then once that hit, like, and all the services shut down, like there's four of us in my family, and I was the one that like was not a homeowner and didn't have kids, and I'm like, we can move in, and like, so we moved in, and I got them both drawing with me a lot, which was kind of funny. And we did a lot of wacky drawing activities, and some of them are on YouTube if you see any of them. But this is really where the work happened for the book, and like the book became the book that it is now. All those other places I got bits and pieces, but it was like during the pandemic that I had the energy and the deep focus necessary to pull it together. So a little bit about my process, and I hope I'm not going too, is this okay? Am I going
Great.
too long? Okay, okay.
No, it's
All
great.
right. I love I'm a sketchbook person. I'm a nervous person. I have anxiety. So I always have paper near me. I'm always doodling. I'm always drawing. I teach it. I give out sketchbooks to people. I'm just, I love sketchbooks. And so a lot of my work happens in the sketchbook, and then I'll take photos of it. And then I will use I'll use Clip Studio Paint to lay out the book and like add things in. But when I need like sort of the visual writing, it happens first on paper. Here are some examples of some of my sketchbook pages. Um, and they're just messy, and like I end up having Michael Safranek becomes a bear in my book, and so I had to figure out how to draw bears. So I just like study things I want to learn how to do, and like what would be a good cartoony way to draw it. And then when I was studying the brain, like I wanted the amygdala to be a character, and like how simple could I make it, and what color should it be? And I definitely like to break out my watercolors and test out color ideas and paint. Like that's part of who I am too. It just, you can't really see it in the finished product, but it got me there. And then my friend Jason Viola, who is a writer slash cartoonist, he when I was struggling, I would turn to him. He's one of my very close friends, and he said he has this like concept of the kernel journal, and he's like, when you get stuck, instead of stopping completely, just write about the writing. So at least you're still writing about something, even if you're just writing about why you're stuck or what's bothering you about working on it. So this is like my book thoughts, or I would like check in about what did I need to do next or whatever. I kind of journaled about my struggle working on it, and that was better than like completely stopping. And I think this was probably from a comic, which I call it Comics Day, when you do each hour, and just like accepting like, oh, this is just going to be really hard and long. That's okay. And here's my fantastical basement studio underneath my parents' house, where I was like, man, I like being underground. If I could have like dug a pit that went down even like 10 feet more, I think I would be even happier. Like I was like, get me away from the world. So I, I initially started on the iPad when I was doing some thumbnails, and then eventually I upgraded to a Wacom big tablet. And I spent the money on that. I was like, I'm gonna do it. So but this is what it looks like. And I try to work standing up, so my posture is not terrible. And then just to show you, like, this is what my thumbnails look like, and they're neater than most people's thumbnails, but it's because I was turning them into editors at Workman Press, and so they had to be able to read it clearly. And then they would give me back notes, and then I would have my own ideas, and then I would do another version of it. So I'll just show you the difference between like my pencil page to my ink, right? So this is what it started as, and then this is what like the final inks would look like. And you can just see, especially on the second page, like the shift in the panels and pacing. And I cut a lot too. I would do way too much, and I would have to pare it way down. So I think like this is part of the intro to the book, which I forget how many pages it was, but it was like double that when I first started it. And I had to get condense it. And then then I would add the color. I hated coloring the book. That was my least favorite part of it. And I definitely would pay someone to do this for me if I had the money. Because I'm a painter. Like I like to splash around, and this felt very soulless and like, ugh. So time consuming, and you can't go anywhere. Like I couldn't do it in a coffee shop. Like I was just chained to my basement studio. Eventually moved to New Bedford, and I have a window now, so I got better. But yeah, don't love coloring.
Wow.
And then just to like, oh yeah, so the bean, even the cover, I did like 20 versions of complicated covers that tried to cover all the information in the book, and they were not working. And then one of the design team that wasn't even like the main person for my book was like, what? Like she went through the entire book and pulled out the simplest bean that was in there and just put it on the cover. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. I would never think to do that. So like I was also open about design choices and like things I didn't understand. And so, but then of course I have to make it complicated, and I made hundreds and hundreds of beans until I found the right bean to put on the cover. But that was fun. It's like, that's a meditation. That's fun to do. And then Michael Safranek, like I said, he really helped me, especially the suicide and crisis prevention chapter. I had the information, like here are the facts, like this is what people should know, but I didn't know what order to put it. Like I'm honestly not that comfortable talking about it in my voice, like out loud. And so he helped me with that, I think, and he was like, let's first talk about if it's someone you care about or are worried about that and then we'll talk about if it's ever you. And then I was like, thank you. And then so his notes were so lovely, and like we even drew together. So when I asked him, I was like, I wanted to interview a therapist in the book, but I didn't want to have like tons of therapists and all different kinds of therapy. I didn't want to overwhelm a person about therapy. Just wanted to be like, hey, like here's just like a really nice person, and like here's what they think about being a therapist. If you want to know more, like you can do more research, and there are different kinds of therapy and you can get into it. But I just wanted to make that person approachable. And so here's me, like, Michael starts as like himself on the computer screen, and that's still how I only know him. I've never met, I probably crossed his path in 2018, but it was before I made this book. And so I asked him what he wanted to be, and he let his family pick, and they said either a sloth or a bear. And so we went with bear. And so the second he becomes a bear therapist, and then I was like, well, if I'm going to do that, I might as well make the perfect room for having therapy. I'm going to make a treehouse you climb up into to talk about your feelings. How fun is that? And just walk around talking to this big, nice bear just felt really good. And I realized that letting people choose what character they want to be, or just like, and even just doing all the teaching that I do with different people and saying like, what do you want to be? Like, I'm going to be a slice of pizza. Like, I want to be a kitten, or whatever people want to be. It's just so nice. And to draw it for them or let them draw themselves, even better. So I'll end on that, which is that a lot of, especially now that the book is out and I'm trying to connect with people about it and fight stigma about it, I've really been leaning on my art teacher skills and drawing with people, which I've always done, but it's certainly been a bridge builder for me for this book. And I draw with anyone that will, it's my way to be like, oh yeah, like mental health, but like let's just start by doodling and not like hit you over the head with it. So I've been going into schools and doing drawing workshops and libraries, and but even like adults have had me for different things. I'll go wherever people want someone to make the room soft and like make it a bit more open. So here's some pictures from this was I was impressed. I got to go to MIT, which again, as a bad high school student, like I was like, I can't believe I'm standing in this room with these caliber of students. But like I taught those kind of kids in Lexington too. And I'm like, it's so funny that like my energy is to help these kind of people that I could never, I was never that kind of kid at all. Um, and then, of course, I've always loved little kids. Like that's gone back to, I was always like a camp counselor or babysitter, or just like a kid person. I'm like a big kid. But also I get to teach adults, which is really fun. And so this was from a library drawing workshop I did the last year. And it was mostly, people over 70. And wow, there were some real blocks and we had to have some chats and like work through just then we're just doodling. Like I'm just like, we're gonna make flowers. Like it's like so gentle. We're not even making comics, which are pretty frustrating. And there's just a lot. It's like you can just kind of get into it gently talking about moving the pencil around. So this is where I am today, kind of hardcore teaching right now, just really going like this whole month of May. I'm going to a ton of places and drawing with people. So that's my deal. That's the end of my talk.
Oh my gosh. What a journey. Cara, that's so much wonderful stuff in there. Thank you.
Crazy.
I know we've had a couple of people in the chat want to ask a question. So maybe if people have a question, they can raise their Zoom hand, and then you can come right on to camera or mic or whatever you
Sorry,
like.
I've not looked at the chat at all because it kind
Oh,
of
that's
stressed
okay.
me. Okay.
So one from Charlie. Charlie, go ahead.
Uh, yeah, I really appreciate a lot of what you had to say. I was actually considering doing a similar path. I've been researching into where I want to go to get my MED and teaching certificate.
Cool.
So I was sort of curious. I was a little confused on the timeline. Like, how long did you teach before like transferring fully into your art and sort of what that was like for you?
Yeah, I did teach for a good chunk. Like I mean, I taught for like 13 years, over 15 years. But prior to that, I was like a camp counselor, or I did a lot of art little classes. Like I've always been drawing with people, even when I was in high school. Like that was, I actually, my first art job, I was in eighth grade teaching after school. I'm just hardcore been teaching. I don't know who I am if I'm not like also making other people draw with me. So that's baked in. But teaching at the high school was 13 years, and I really learned to have more of a backbone there, and because you have to control like a classroom and you have to have a presence, and that's been good for my public speaking or like being able to present about this book. I think if I hadn't been a teacher first, I was probably too shy to do the kind of stuff I'm doing now. And also, the beauty of teaching is like repetition. You go through something over and over and over and over again, and you see the weaknesses in it. You go, oh, I shouldn't have done that way. Like, but you always get another try. You get a new class, you get a new group, and you go, okay, next time, I'm gonna try this other thing because I know that didn't work out well. So I think that's a beautiful thing about teaching is you can really grow as a person in that way. So I look back So I developed the empathy for my students to love them enough to make this book that was really scary to make, but I also had been building these skills, and I really learned comics alongside my students, and a lot of them were much better cartoonists than me because they've been drawing comics since they were 6 and I just started in my late 20s. So they were teaching me a lot of things too, especially all the students that were studying manga, and like they just had a really good handle on things. So, and you get to stay immature and be silly and be a kid still, which I really love about working with young people. I'm just one of the kids. Did that answer the question? And I
A
made a
lot of
lot of money compared to what I make now. I was able to save up enough to take a year off. I was able to live under my means so I could collect and then like be able to do something like work on my comics for a year, which I couldn't have done um, in the way that things are going now.
Thank you. I guess one other little thing I was wondering, were you able to work on your own stuff while you were teaching, or was it a lot of your time was on the kids, what to teach them, how to support them, and you were kind of burned out to be able to do too much of your own stuff?
Yeah, bingo. Yeah, that's very accurate. So I think at that time I was still able to learn a lot. But in production, that's why I liked working. That's when all those anthologies came out. When I would do 2 pages, and that would take so much time for me to just get 2 pages of comics done to be in, anthology that Rob Kirby was going to put out at SPX, and then I could go to SPX and hang out with all these cartoonists. So for me, that was enough, and that was like all I could handle. But teaching is a different part of my brain, and it does take a lot of um, my like outside extrovert energy. And even when the summers would come, I go, finally, I have a whole summer to work on my comics. That first week, I was just nothing really happened. I had to just rest and catch up on sleep and like get back to my little bubble of creativity. I When I was working on Snake Pit and I really had this laser beam focus, I do have kind of a intense work ethic when I need it. It's changing as I'm aging, but there was a time when I would get up at like 4 a.m. and work before school because I loved my brain before anyone talked to me. And I just wanted to like have my thoughts and my creativity to myself. And then the school started at like 7:45, and I would be available to everyone. And then I'm pretty bad after 3 o'clock, even to this day, even though I'm not teaching that kind of schedule anymore. I'm not a good evening person, or even after like 4, I'm pretty not fun to talk to and just want to watch TV and clean something. I'm not like able to get deep into my mind. Oh, I don't know how to call him. Who should talk next? What do you think, Tom?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
I don't know if somebody was before me. Did you teach during the pandemic? And were you high school, middle school?
Thanks for asking. Yeah, I was not teaching in the classroom, and that I had such survivor's guilt about that. Like I was like, oh my gosh, because all my close teacher friends were Zooming teaching, and like all my parent friends were trying to handle their kids and work at the same time. Like, wow, it was so intense. But I had this like very strong urge to help out. And so I started doing like comics camp just with my friends' kids, like and or family members. And I would teach comics or cartooning from Zoom. And then a few people asked me to do mindful drawing workshops for their groups. And so I did one for veterinarians, which was cool. Like several, I think I did like 6 of them for veterinarians that were students. And um, that was all during the pandemic. So I kind of got deeper into the mindful drawing and thinking about how I explain it to people. And then it kind of interesting in that like people couldn't see each other's work. And so maybe for adults, it was kind of enjoyable because they weren't embarrassed. They could draw and no one would see. But for kids, it kind of was really painful. You know, they just really, really wanted to be with each other. And like anyone over 12 at a certain point just started turning off their screens. And I was like, this stinks. So I remember what a struggle that was. But I was also feeling like I escaped a really hard teaching time that I wasn't, I mean, I didn't plan it that way. I left teaching to work on this book, but it just so happened that the pandemic happened in that time.
Well, your students or the individuals and community that you taught, um, or offered the mindful classes. I was teaching in a middle school, and it was really tough. The kids would come in and just were not wanting to be there. And we did the hybrid, and so art is huge. And I thank you for providing that to kids of all ages and all communities. I was in a I was in Bourne, but I had taught New Bedford for many years. And so,
Hey,
yeah, yeah. So you go from one extreme where you're pretty inner city, and then I go to Bourne, and it was like, no one's telling me to F off, but there's a real comfort, getting to connect with that each type of individual. But COVID was really, really hard. And I hope that schools have your book to help
yeah,
Agreed.
themselves and community.
that's the push right now for me is getting them to not be afraid of the book. And
Thank you very much. I'll let you have other questions too.
Thanks, Lori. Thanks, Kara. Okay, Brandon. Brandon says he can unmute.
Brandon,
Yo,
know you.
hey, nice to see you again.
Good to see
Oh,
you.
thanks for doing this. Sorry, I literally just walked in the house. Okay. So my question is, so I've been thinking about um becoming a teaching artist. And one thing that was, brought up to me when I was talking to one was, doing library workshops, that sort of thing. So my question was like how does one begin that process? Like how does one start to you know, like reach out to libraries, reach out to different like studio spaces to be like, hey, you don't know me very well or at all, but like let me come and draw some comics and like pay me and have some people come in and watch. Like I don't know how that works.
You can do it, Brandon. Yeah, it's always awkward. You know, I have no business skills at all. I've had to learn through trial and error, many errors. But it was, let's see. I think it started when I did that drawing mustaches book.
Mm.
I did a thing at a local bookstore and a librarian attended, and she asked me if I wanted to do it again for their library. And I was like, oh, okay. And I remember I was so nervous, and but they were so nice to me. And the thing about libraries is if you can just get one librarian to trust you, they have a secret librarian network. I don't know. They talk to each other online in a place where we can't find them. And if they like you, they spread the word. And then all of a sudden, the next library and the next library and the next library calls you. And you're like, oh, you get like 4 libraries. So what I found, so there's 2 things. One is make like a packet of like introducing yourself, like, hey, like I'm Brandon and like I'm awesome and these are my comics and this is like maybe a picture of yourself with friendly smile. And then pictures of you with kids laughing at your jokes or whatever, and then you send it to them. And then even that, like those little packets, I sent those out at the beginning, and someone called me 2 years later and they were like,
Oh
I
wow.
remember this packet you sent me. So you never know. So it doesn't mean it happens like overnight. But again, like if you have one positive, it kind of spirals. The second is I don't know what it's like in Michigan, but in Massachusetts, we have our cultural council, of course, like in our current American state, I'm sure like all grants and things are getting upsetting, but at least in Massachusetts, we have local cultural council grants. And so if you go into like, you just start with like your local library that you always go to and be like, you know me, I'm cool. And give them your packet and be like, listen, like, I don't know if you don't have any funding for this, but I can apply for this grant if you'll write me a letter of support. And so the
Oh, okay.
librarians like, this, and of course, like kids love comics right now. Like anything drawing, like it will be huge. Like everything is like sold out or crowded that I do. Like there aren't enough our personalities doing this thing. Like more people should be doing it. The kids are starved for it. So like, yeah. So if you can get the librarian to write you a letter, then you can often get in Massachusetts. I've gotten a lot of library gigs that way, and I like it because I don't have to charge the library, and so it's like I can go into Fall River and I can go into towns that maybe don't have funding for this, and but the cultural council does, so they pay for it.
Hmm. That makes a lot of sense. It sounds like a
Yeah.
journey in of itself, but it sounds like it's
Hmm.
worth doing though.
Yeah, you would be awesome. Oh, they would be so lucky to have you. You just have to, you do that awkward sell yourself page, and then that's what you send to them. And it's horrible, but that's what you got to do. Yeah. And put it on your web page too.
Will do.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I
Thanks.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brandon. Thanks, Cara. Yeah, that network of librarians is true. I was like the go-to guy in like Southern Connecticut for a while. I have no idea how. They just would all call me. Like, how'd you get my number? Anyway, we'll go to Jeannie next. Are you there,
I
Jeannie?
think you're on mute, Jeannie.
Yeah. Can you unmute?
Yeah,
There,
okay,
there we go.
poking it. Yeah, thank you so much, Cara. That this was really great. It really, it's really gotten me thinking. One thing I wanted to tell you, I was at the graphic medicine conference in 2018 in Vermont also. So
That's a good one.
yeah, it was a good one. It really was. It was great. I'm also right now the comics and mental health liaison on the graphic medicine site, and your book is there. Absolutely. So that was great. And you had I can't remember the interview that you had, but it was so wonderful for me to listen to it because it helped me with my presentation at NAMI last year, which I think is a really great place for comics and graphic novels and graphic medicine, because they have no idea. They have no idea. I'm trying to get on the docket for the California NAMI conference this year too. But I think it's really important to tie those two things together. And you're talking about your memoir or your book for middle school has really helped me, because I would really like to for my memoir, which is about childhood trauma, and I would really like school kids to know about that when you go home to your family and it's like wacko world compared to what's going on in school, and all of that kind of thing. So that was really helpful, because I just really thought, yeah, I can't do that. I just
Yeah. Yeah. No, it would be, it's a relief, I think, to people who are in a similar situation. And it's good for people who aren't in the situation to understand it's not the same for everybody.
yes, I think that's really true. So anyway, thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Thanks, Jeannie. Okay, we'll go to Lana and then let's see if Lana's ready. And I think Nancy had a question too. Lana, are you there? We could go to Nancy. Nancy, do you want to come on mic, or should I ask the question you asked in the chat?
Oh, sorry. I just figured out how to unmute. My phone wasn't
Oh, okay. We'll go to Lana and then Nancy. Go ahead, Lana.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm sure a lot of us are feeling like we're your kindred spirits and are, have the same interests. So this was a really like enlivening talk. I wondered if you are in the position where now you have to like advocate for your book or work harder to get it into school libraries, and if now your work as a cartoonist is finding yourself in school board meetings or yeah, anything like that?
Yeah, not that far, but I have like I've had to kind of like almost like interview for jobs to just do a school visit. So I feel like I have to go do the slideshow, answer questions, and they're like, "Oh, okay." And then you can come and do the school visit. Where I feel like maybe if it was just another kind of book, you would just go to the school. So it's a little extra time for certain places. Some places are open arms, or I've already had a little relationship somehow, and they know me and they've read the book and they get it. And some are, no, what is this again? No, come in, and we would have another meeting, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like just say yes or no. But I do really want it to be there, so I'm willing. I'm kind of putting that extra time in, at least like this year, to make it open the door. And certain places are like, and it's really cool. Actually, I just visited the school I taught at Lexington and was interviewed by the now retired biology professor who's really into, he works with he does a mental health group. He's retired, but he still comes in and like is the advisor to this club, and they talk to me. But I was like so happy to be back there, and also that I always admired him as a scientist, and he was like, I didn't think I got your book. I was like, she's not going to get this right. Or what does she mean? Comics are going to do a good job explaining this. He's like, but they did. And he was like, you proved me wrong. Like he was really like honest about it. And I felt like that's a true compliment, or like I like that he's embracing it. So, and I also got invited to Virginia Tech by the neuroscience department there, and they are doing science communication. And there was a certain group of students that were doing comics, and they asked me to make brain comics with them. And I was like, again, like I can't believe these really smart students are bringing me in. I'm an art teacher, but it makes me feel like, okay, like if these professors think it's okay, like I was really nervous making it. It's doing its job, and yeah, the more if it could be trusted by like and used in a health class, I think that's where I really love it to be, hey, in our particular community, these are the resources at this school. Come to this person, this I'm gonna put, and I'll do that. Like if I go to a school system, I'll be like, here are your guidance counselors, here are the teachers that want you to say something, like, and like they'll stand up and be like, yes, like, and just to kind of clear the air, like definitely tell somebody if you need to reach out, and like specifically here, this is where you can do it. So that's really powerful in a school. So I hope that more of that will happen.
Great. Thanks. I mean, Saw alone bought 4 copies. Do you find that some schools are buying like
Yeah, I
group
don't get
copies?
paperwork on like who do, so it's really
Mhm.
only like other people that are in comics that like I know there's this lovely cartoonist Pam Y who teaches
Oh
in,
yeah, yeah.
Pam, yeah,
Yeah.
she makes comics and she teaches in New Jersey. And so I'm actually going to visit her this week in her classroom, and we're going to make some trauma comics. And she took a picture of her classroom, and she bought a classroom pack. And I was like almost
Awesome.
crying. I'm like, oh my God. But like, I don't know who's buying them. I can't tell if
Mhm.
it's happening unless people tell me. So I don't know.
Well,
It's
it's
still pretty new. Yeah.
been out a year, right?
Yeah, it's been out a year,
Yeah.
but
I mean, it is that good that I think it should really be spread around to, oh, you know that, to
I hope so. I
health
hope so.
classes and things like that. All right, let's ask Nancy's question, and then that'll be our last.
Okay, I was just wondering, like, do people, well, first of all, like when you teach the class and everything, like I thought you were a psychologist or something because your information is so, deep, right? But then I wondered when, like, I think I heard it said somewhere that when you are like thinking about the experience, like if you had a trauma, you are re-experiencing it and your brain doesn't really know the difference.
Mm.
Now, is I don't know if you feel qualified to answer or not, but
Yeah,
is
I'm
that
definitely
true?
not. No,
mean,
but I mean, there's so much of that in our comics, like our contemporary comics is processing traumas, right? And like it's so beautifully, brings you into someone's life and you feel their feelings and you feel their experience. So it's really powerful, but I think you as a creator have to decide you want to do that. And if you're a kid and a student, you don't have to do that. So that's not something I would bring up
Mm.
because I'm like, hi, I'm a person you're meeting for an hour or 2 hours and then I'm out of your life. Like I wouldn't want to um go there with them. So I'm very playful and I might focus a little bit on like how we cope with stress or stick with the science, but I leave that to the guidance counselors and to the, families and communities that have a daily experience with this, young person. But yeah, like so for Pam's class, that's the relationship she has with these students, but I'll just be there to soften the room and open the space and create the vibe where it can feel good to draw, and but that deeper work is something that professionals would do. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Great. There, Cara, thanks. I have a question a tiny bit related to that, and this can be our last question if that's okay. And at least twice you mentioned that you learn by redrawing things. And you mentioned that about chemistry when you got that chemistry gig. Can you just talk a tiny bit more about that? Because that's so exciting to hear that drawing might be a learning tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And they have studied this, that doodlers and renderers, like it does enhance your memory of like a topic when you're trying to learn it. And even when I was going through old letters recently, I found one that I had written to my dad when I was in grad school, and I was talking about this class that was really hard and I was intimidated by the professor. And I said in the letter, I'm going to have to redraw everything this guy says. So I've always done, I was like, oh, if I knew when I was like 20 and 21, like, this is how, if okay, if you want me to learn this, I'm going to have to freaking draw it and like, and like really
Wow.
see it. And then I'll learn it. I think I had that kind of brain that I could memorize things, but not really learn it. Like, and I could get good grade, not good. I was not a good student, but I could like on those art history tests where you could like see the slide and then know the year. I could do that for the test and then that information was totally gone. But I knew if I actually wanted to internalize the information, I had to redraw it or even like rewrite it and break it into pieces and see it as a image instead of as a block of text or something I heard.
That's awesome. Wow, it's so nice to hear. And I'd like to bring more of that um, energy into saw in general, like this idea of drawing as a integrating tool, I guess you might call it, or something. I'm not sure what to call it. So maybe you and I can be in touch and you can bring you in to do more of that.
Oh,
That'd be great. Okay, well, gosh, Cara, thank you so much. This is so fabulous. What a great journey that was. And I've known you for a long time, but I didn't know what a great painter you were. Paintings are beautiful. Yeah. And
I still like to paint.
oh wow. Awesome. But you don't like to color.
Don't like to digitally color. Yeah, that's just pure torture for me. I
Oh
do
my
that.
God, so funny.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna ask everybody to unmute and give you a round of applause. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch. I'm so glad we're
Thank
close.
you.
Give Kara a round of applause and we'll see you all next
Thanks so
time.
much.
Thanks
Thank
everybody.
you.
Great,
Thank
great
Go
you.
buy,
session.
oh
Thank
wait, I'm gonna
you.
put your book in the chat. It's too late now, but I should have done it already.
Oh yeah.
Like
You.
where to buy it.
Ask your libraries to order it. It like then it'll affect your community. So if it's I just got a beautiful message from a teenage boy that got my book in the library and I was like, yes, like so if it can be in the library, it can help a lot of people.
All right, I just put
I
it
was
in.
just gonna say, where's the link?
It's in the
Nice
chat.
one.
Just put it there.
And
All
what's
right.
the name of the new book?
Here I am me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there it is. Click. You got a second or two to click it well before we close out. Um, And I hope you do get some sales reports from Workman, at some point.
Oh,
Find out
yeah,
how
they're
it's
like
doing.
the site is down and I
What?
I don't know how the book is doing for since like 4 months. I don't know.
Oh no.
Oh, I will say it's being published in other countries. And the list of countries that are interested is very interesting to me. Not what I would expect. The Saudi Arabia,
Whoa.
South Korea, Japan, Poland, China, and Russia. And I was like, wow, these are interesting countries that want this book.
Wow.
And what will they think of this book, when it's published in their language? And unlike, at least for, I know Japan and Saudi Arabia, it's going to read right to left, and that's a lot of reformatting, and there's a lot of block letter. There's a lot to do for them to remake this for their cultures, and that's fascinating. So
Cool.
yeah.
All right. Hopefully everybody's clicked that link and they're going to go buy it. Thanks, Ken.
Hey,
We'll talk soon.
everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for being
Bye.
here.
Thank
Ciao
you.
for now. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. This has been a production of the Sequential Artists Workshop, or SAW. You can find us on social media at Comics Workshop and online at sawcomics.org. You can hear about our many courses at learn.sawcomics.org. SAW is a nonprofit and supported by people like you. Learn how to make a tax-deductible donation at the donate page of sawcomics.org. You can join our free community of comics explorers at members.sawcomics.org. Thanks so much for being here.